My name is Manouchka. We want to welcome all of our VOUS friends and family join us by way of video and podcast. Why don't we give it up for our VOUS friends and family? So thankful for them. Well, today is a little bit of a different day. We've got our pastors in the hot seat today. We're going to be asking them some questions. Over the past few weeks, you've been submitting questions online at our courtyard. We've been in this collection of talks called Asking for a Friend. So we're going to be answering your questions today. But we've got some panelists up here with us. We've got Omar and Erica, Adrian and Michelle, Jesus and Blanca. Let's give it up for our incredible panelists. Pastor Rich, Pastor DC, how you doing today? Thank you for being here.
Feeling good. It's been a good morning thus far. I've always wanted to go on the Oprah Winfrey show, and so I feel like I'm living out a dream.
Come on, I love this. How many of you love Manouchka? You're pretty incredible.
I just want to say, honestly, I am so thankful for both of you because these past few weeks have been so enlightening. See, really this collection of talks is for everybody. It's whether you're single, married, dating, engaged, in a relationship in your head, you know. Some people just like think they're in a relationship. He has no idea, just holding on to faith. But it's been helpful for anybody, no matter what spectrum you fall in, just really learning about relationships. The first week, Pastor DC, you spoke to the men. Pastor Rich, the second week, you spoke to all the ladies. And then last week, the two of you spoke together. And I think my biggest takeaway of all those messages is not just about the other person, but who do I need to be? We talked about this idea of becoming, but who am I becoming? Oftentimes we put fault in the hands of somebody else. We point fingers in the person that we're in a relationship with, but really it's about looking inside. I want to be the person that I'm looking for is looking for. I want to know who I am as an individual because a healthy relationship is really built by two healthy individuals. And I think you've given us an opportunity to learn how to be healthy individuals. So thank you so much for the past 3 weeks.
We love you. Thank you.
It's been incredible.
So I think the real question is, are you in a relationship?
I am currently single, but you know, I'm just waiting on the Lord, you know?
I
just
think
waiting on.
I feel like the Lord's going to move swiftly after this service.
I love when God moves swiftly, so Jesus,
Suddenly.
wherever you at. But I love the two of you story. I think just like you guys have been together 18 years, going on 19 years now. And I think you've been in so many different seasons. You've dated, got married in college, moved to a brand new city, started an incredible ministry. You walked through this journey of infertility, started this church here, had 2 children. There's so many different seasons of life that your relationship has gone on. And someone had this beautiful question. They said, can you speak to what it looks like to effectively grow together, where it doesn't feel like one person has moved into another season without the other person?
Yeah, I think that it's such an important question because all of us go through different seasons in relationship. And I think in our relationship, what we've learned over the years and what we're still learning is that you have to create space in your relationship for the person to have the ability to grow into who God has called them to be. Sometimes we can get so stuck and we can have expectations that that person will always be the same, but God's doing something new in their life. And I think we have to celebrate that. I think we have to speak to that, you know. Being unified, it's not uniformity. It's not being exactly the same. We would miss out on the joy of our relationship if we tried to move forward being exactly the same, having the same dreams, having the same desires, having the same gifts. Rich has different gifts than I do. I have different gifts than he does. We see things differently at times, but that's what makes the relationship beautiful and dynamic. And as long as we keep communication open, as long as we choose to keep our hearts united by walking together, there's no season you can't walk through. I think there have been a lot of different journeys where we've been in different places, but our hearts have been united. Where maybe it was a season where you were encouraging me and I really desperately needed it, or maybe it was vice versa.
Yeah, I think that relationships always require leadership. Yeah. And so at times, I think DawnCheré, as she's saying, is leading the relationship. Other times, I'm leading a different category. And leadership is always, good leaders speak to people's potential. They don't speak to the present situation. We're talking about where we're headed, where we're going, and we're casting vision. And I just think it's very important, especially those of you that are married in the room, that you get good at not just criticizing the current situation, but you get even better at celebrating the future destination. Whatever you celebrate will be reinforced, and whatever you reinforce will be repeated. So when you see good behavior, hello, meaning when you see someone doing what you want them to do or what you desire, what you like, that's the thing you should celebrate. Many times we get the order wrong and we just criticize, what, you never do it this way, you never do it that way, you should be more like me, I'm doing this, you're not doing that. And it doesn't produce what we're looking for. And so I think growth is vital because thank God I am not the same dude I was at 17 years of age when she met me. I have grown a little bit, and DawnCheré has become someone entirely different from who I met almost 19 years ago. And so the fact that we've given each other space and that we try to speak to who we're becoming, I think makes all the difference in the world.
I love that. That's great. Falling in love is easy. How does one stay committed?
Manu's been changing up the questions in every service, so this is fun. I think number one, you got to break that thought process. Like, I really believe that a transformed life comes from a transformed mind and new thoughts, and it's right living it's right believing that turns into right living. And so even the idea that we fell in love, it's kind of bad vocabulary because you can fall in love, you can also fall out of your car. But typically to fall out of your car, you have to open up a door, you have to hang your foot out, you have to lean into a turn. Like, there's all these things that you do for that to take place. And so I think we have to actually just change the entire picture that we have around love. Love is a choice. Love is a commitment. We need to get married, not just out of emotion, but we need to get married out of a devotion, out of a decision, a calling. I'm committing to you, and I'm gonna fight for this thing. So how you stay in love is that you wake up every day choosing to fight for it. It's the daily relationship. It's like, how do you follow Jesus? It's like you carry your cross every day. And I think that it's the same thing in a relationship, that you make a decision daily to say, we might be in a tough spot. We might be having some miscommunication, but we don't even give, like, the word divorce is not even allowed in our home. That's never even been a thought pattern for either one of us. Murder, we've thought about a couple times, but
that escalated.
Oh, we can't be real in here, like that guy, This is weird. But I'm just saying, like, there's just certain things that we've just decided that's like we're not even going down that path. That's when we argue and have intense fellowship, those words don't come out of it. We're not threatening one another with, you do that again, I'm out. Like, that's not producing any type of a committed relationship. How have you stayed with me all these years? What do you love about me?
Everything.
Sorry, I just get this is a different day for me.
I think everything that you were saying is completely true. When he was talking about see the big picture, I think the way that you stay committed is see what you have, value it. Like, so often we can look outside and go, oh, the party's out there. No, the party is where you are at in your relationship. When you start to value it is when you start to celebrate it like never before. And I just think that understanding the gift of having somebody to walk through life, that it should be protected, that it should be treasured. And I think that gratitude allows you to go when other options or when other thoughts or when temptations or when disappointment comes, that you can go, oh no, like, my commitment still stands. This is one of the greatest gifts that God has ever given me. We can go through tough times, but where we are today doesn't mean that we're gonna be there tomorrow. I'm gonna continue to invest. I'm gonna continue to speak life. You wanna know how to stay committed? Watch what you're speaking. Watch the thoughts that you're allowing yourself to feed off of and the cues that you're taking in your relationship. I don't think any relationship is past the hands of the God that we serve.
This collection's called Asking for a Friend, and we're asking for a friend right now. We brought some of our friends up here because there's really, really smart people. Yes. But you just asked, how do you stay in love? Jesus and Blanca, how long have you guys been married? I'm just curious.
We've been married 24 years now.
20? Come on, somebody, put your hands together out there.
You're the best.
And today I think it's really important because people like, how do you build a healthy church? You build a healthy church off a healthy family.
Right.
That's not just our idea. That's like biblical. Ephesians 5, Paul lays out the ground rules for a healthy home. But one of the things he does is he likens Christ to the bridegroom, and the church is known as the bride. He talks about an intimate relationship, and I actually believe that the more that we have healthy families in our church, the healthier our church will be. And I'm just grateful today. I'm trying to give a little bit of a vision and a picture in all of our services that there's some incredible couples. But I think the question is best probably served to them because they've spent 24 years in marriage. What would maybe be one thing that you feel like you could say, especially a lot of the young couples, but even people that have been married, like, how have you guys stayed in love? It's been easy, I know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, super easy. No, I'm
Easier
kidding.
said than done, but I think for us, it's being intentional with each other. It's not about like I or you; it's about us, and I think it's also that me as a man of my household, head of my household, I think I have to understand that God has entrusted me with my wife and my kids. Yeah. So what am I going to do with it? You know, and that's something that I value every day. How do I cultivate love? How do I become a better father? How do I become a better husband? And it's a constant work in progress. I think I've said it before, our life is like the Palmetto Expressway. We're always under construction, like never ends. It never ends. So
everybody in the online world won't get that, but those of us locally, that hits, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Babe, you want to share something?
No, just that. I think that we are intentional with dating each other, with staying in love. It is not a feeling. It's a choice that we made, and we're going to stick to it. Right?
So good.
Give them a round of applause. They're pretty amazing.
I love that. We're going to be asking all different kinds of questions all day today. I think the PM, we're going to really lead into singleness and dating.
Yeah.
And
you got some questions
I've
around
got
that,
some
yeah.
personal questions of my own, so you can come out and hear those. But really, we've got some incredible parents up here, and you all lead your households. Your children are different ages. How do you raise your children to be godly? How do you raise your children to follow Jesus?
I think that DawnCheré and I are on that journey right now. We're like a work in progress, which is kind of cool because I think there's a lot of young families starting to come to church here. And I think we learn as we go and we share our secrets as we go. But rather than even like give testimony of what we're doing, I think that we both have really great references.
Yep.
Amazing parents. And I think the thing that I take away from my parents, and DawnCheré can comment because I love their family so much, but I just think there was an authentic, real home. My dad is a Pentecostal preacher full of conviction. Had all sorts of rules for us growing up. I mean, we used to have a no dancing rule in my house. Like truly, like it would get weird. It would be like someone would get pregnant, like in church, and be like, "But were they dancing?" You're like, it doesn't. Like, we're past that, you know. We used to go to weddings and like the dance music would hit. My dad would be like, "Wilkerson's, we're out." So like, it was very radical. But even in the midst of like, we don't have a problem with dancing. But what I loved about my parents is that even with all that conviction, they were very authentic, meaning it wasn't like they were portraying one thing at church and being something different at home. They were the same version. And I think many times what happens in homes with moms and dads is that there's something projected upon kids that they themselves are not holding themselves accountable to, that they're not authentically walking out and living out. And like kids, like we're smart. Like I'm calling myself a kid. We know what you guys are doing, mom and dad. But I think they're on to us. I think that they know when we're saying something and we're doing something different. And what I appreciate about both my parents is that they were just the real deal. They weren't they weren't saying one thing and doing another. And I think it's so important in the home to have honest communication and to discuss those types of things.
Yeah, I think that in our home, I grew up in a very flexible home as far as my parents were on the road. When I was 2 weeks old, I was put on a tour bus in a bassinet. There was a period in my life where we didn't come home for 6 months. And so there was a lot of flexibility as far as the day-to-day routine, but the things that were consistent in our home was that love was spoken. We were committed to being in church every time the doors were open. And there were real conversations about who Jesus is and what his presence does in our home and in our lives. And I think that, you know, seasons can change and life can be very flexible, and you can go into seasons where you don't know what to expect. But I think as long as you decide that you're going to protect the culture of your home, that you're going to respect one another, that you're going to love one another. We were by no means perfect kids, 6 kids under the same roof, growing up, a lot of differences, a lot of different personalities. But I think one thing I learned from my parents is that they always taught us that our siblings were our allies. And even when we were in arguments, when we would come to our parents with a complaint about each other, our parents would always speak life to us about how the other person saw us. So I could come upset with my sister, but my mom, instead of saying, you know, you're gonna get through this, you'll be better, she'd say, you know your sister loves you. She thinks the world of you. She values your opinion. What you say counts. And she would start to build a case for the way that my sister saw me that would build confidence and unity for us, even though we weren't in the same room. Parents, your voice matters. the way that you shape the culture of your home, it matters and it's powerful.
Yeah. And I think that our church, we have a lot of people who are on different journeys. Some people have met Jesus here at VOUS, and their spouse may not necessarily be on the same journey as them. So what would you speak to a person that says, what do I do if my spouse doesn't want to come to church?
Such an important question and so practical in church life. I love our church. I love the stories. I love that we have created a space, or at least we're attempting to create a space that people can come with questions, concerns, doubts, hang-ups. Church like this is not easy. It's messy. And we actually always try to fight for a messy church over an easy church. But I think I want to encourage whoever that spouse is or whoever is asking that question, you have a real great opportunity in front of you. And the great opportunity is that maybe your life has shifted and you've pivoted and you've found Christ and you have started a brand new journey of faith. I think one of the greatest mistakes you can do is to come out of this place and belittle your spouse, judge your spouse, make your spouse feel less than for not being where you're at on the journey. It's like nobody likes a preacher who just tells you all the wrong you're doing. I like preachers that are telling me who I can become, telling me what Christ has done for me. And in your home, you get to represent Jesus. And I wonder, are you making that look attractive? Or are you coming at your spouse, making them feel less than? It's not gonna produce in the long run what you're looking for. I think that you've made a commitment. Now, according to the Bible, there's only 2 biblical grounds for divorce. That's when people have an affair, when there's cheating going on, and that's when there's physical abuse in the home. DawnCheré made a beautiful statement last week, and I want to just reiterate it because I know that happens in culture today. There is no excuse for anybody putting their hands on you and physically harming you. You don't need to make excuses for that. You shouldn't tolerate that. You should share that with somebody. That needs to stop today. But I meet some people, Manu, that they got married 10 years ago and then their life got radically changed and now their spouse hasn't caught up to them and they find themselves judging and condemning. I got a really good friend right now who's had a huge conversion, but his wife is not where he's at. And he's going home at times and there's this new conviction inside of him but he doesn't understand that he's berating his wife and he's at times condemning his wife. And I'm just saying, bro, you gotta be patient like God was patient with you. You know, God is so patient and waits on us. And I think in our homes, we get a chance to love each other like Christ loves the church, and we get to wait on one another. And I think it's a real opportunity to be an example, not to preach at them, but to live out the sermons you're hearing week in and week out.
And I just want to say to the people in this room that that's your situation or watching online, that we see it happen day after day, that God captures, just like he captured our hearts. Yeah. And it only takes a moment in the presence of God. And it doesn't matter if you've been waiting for a couple months or for decades, that person that you love is not out of the sight of God. They are loved by God, they are seen, and even now, whether they know it or not, they're being drawn. Come on, do you believe it today? Yeah. Let's put our hands together. These are the stories that make this community miraculous.
And I think that all draws back to how you communicate and the way that you speak to your spouse or somebody that you're in a relationship with. Do you guys have tips for communication in relationships?
I think that communication is key. We've been talking about it for the last few weeks, but I think if there was one thing that I would say is that counseling is an incredible help to every single relationship. And I don't know what it is about that word that so many of us can shy away from it and think like it's beneath us or that we don't need it or we'll wait until things are bad to get counseling. But on the flip side, we applaud people who further their education. We applaud people who decide to take more responsibility in their workplace and to engage in different exercises that allow them to grow into who they're called to be. We applaud people who go away for conferences for the weekend, but we can't sit down and talk about our marriage with someone who can give us real wisdom and insight. I think that it's time for us to put away that foolish thinking. I think there's something powerful about having someone sit in the room with you as you discuss your relationship. I think that you speak kinder. I think that you hear things clearer. I think that you communicate differently. And I think that counseling is something that you start when your marriage is great, not when the wheels have fallen off. And maybe the wheels have fallen off, but it's not too late. You can get the wisdom that you need. I think that all of us need counseling.
And it's just so important with communication that it's always not just what you're saying, it's how you're saying it. And hopefully you've learned that if you've spent any time with the opposite sex or in a relationship of any sort, that it's not just what people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Yeah. And although DawnChere and I have exchanged vows, moment by moment, scenario by scenario, me expressing my love and my care and her well-being that I have her well-being in mind always helps the medicine go down easier. And so when it comes to how, I think there's things like right timing. I think you should define with your partner, like, when's the right timing for certain types of conversations? I don't like waking up and all of a sudden we're discussing, our finances. It's like, whoa, like I was dreaming about Jesus and the Holy Spirit and I was deep in prayer. I'm not ready for economics. So I just like, that's not good timing. I think tone, it's funny because you can say even a nice thing in the wrong tone. I love you. I don't believe you, So I think tone matters. I think setting. I think that I was talking to a couple not too long ago, and like they have a hard time. They're like, you know what? We just can't. You don't understand where I come from. Like, it's I'm Latin, and so when we talk loud. It gets heated. I'm like, okay, I didn't know that's a Latin thing, but I said, have you ever tried taking this conversation to a library? Because I have a feeling in the library, you'll control your tone. Like, you won't be as loud. I don't care what country you're from. Like, it's gonna gauge you a little bit. And I also think it like, communication is everything. So in the how, I think we used to have a thing, we used to say bat the ball back and forth. And there's been different moments we give each other time where it's like, all right, you got 1 minute, go, state your case. And then I'll go. And the idea of an ebb and flow to go back and forth, rules of engagement, fighting fair is so important. We were in our crew the other week, and I loved it because in our crew, in conversation like we're having today, that we don't believe life change happens in a sermon. We believe it's a catalyst for change. Change always happens in conversation. I have a feeling, my hope today is that couples are getting in their minivan. By the way, we just got a minivan yesterday. Holler at your boy. Double sliding doors.
Let's go.
Keyless ignition. This thing's sick, bro. Anyways, but as you're driving home, I'm hoping that you're gonna go, hey, what'd you think about that part? And hope there's a level of disagreement, a level of conflict that's healthy, that's positive. But we were in our crew today and having conversation, and we came to this idea about, what you're saying versus how you're saying it. And the how is always wrapped in patience. It's patiently waiting on the other person and discovering what they're saying. And somebody from our crew, I just loved it. They gave us this principle about the 2 C's, which is to confirm and clarify. So when DawnCheré tells me something, the first thing I want to do is I want to confirm it. I want to state back to her what she just said to me. What that does is that makes her feel valued, that I'm actually listening to what she said. Right. And then secondly, after I've confirmed it, I want to clarify it, because we all say something, but then we mean something in what we've said. And clarifying is, I think you mean this. And then you can actually have healthy, I believe, conflict or healthy conversation.
That's great.
Is that cool?
I love that. I want to shift gears a little bit. We've got a dating question.
Ooh.
Someone said, hey, pastors, what advice would you give someone who likes a girl but is super nervous around her and afraid to make the first move?
Okay.
Before you go, hold on, before you go. No, I'm not going to go. I actually just think because Adrian Molina's up here.
Yeah.
And
this is good.
This is actually, because I know a little about their story, but Adrian, I don't think you lack in the confidence category, but you did face mild forms of rejection. Where did you build the confidence to, and you explain, but you take it and then we'll go.
Yeah, so mild form of rejection in the form of I asked Michelle out 7 times and she said no every time except for the last time, praise God. Because 7 is a holy number. You know what I'm talking about? Thank you, buddy. Yeah, I think that's normal to feel that as a guy, to sometimes feel some hesitation and to sometimes feel some restraint on wanting to approach a girl that you're interested in. But I think first and foremost, it's understanding that you are of value and that you bring value and that you would be a contribution as a friend. You would be a contribution as a significant other. But then I think once you've identified somebody that you're like, you know what, I actually want to pursue this person. I want to get to know this person. You do so tactfully, get to understand what it is that they like. I was obsessed with understanding what Michelle liked and understanding what she valued and what was fun for her. And I'm like, you like Disney? Girl, I like Disney too. You like the color blue? I love the color blue. You know, like I'm just kidding. I wasn't lying, but you're getting to know the other person and you're pursuing that. So I think even if you're shy, even if you're timid, it's first and foremost understanding that you are a man of God and that God's put something inside of you that's unique, different from any other man on the planet, and who he has appointed you to be with will be a beneficiary of what he's put inside you. You just got to walk in that kind of confidence.
That's so good. And I would just say that if you're afraid, it sounds like you found a good thing. It sounds like you found a woman of worth, someone that you value and honor and respect. And I think for both of us, we've just decided that the things that we're afraid of, those are the things we're gonna run towards. So often fear can intimidate us and make us back away from some of the greatest things in our life. And so I'd just say to the guys, like, hey, if you're a little bit afraid or a little bit insecure about it, that's even more of a reason for you to approach that woman, because that tells me that you think she's very special, that there's something about her that you honor and respect and admire. Don't give up. 7 times, Adrian?
7 times.
See, 7 times. Keep going. Keep inviting to coffee. You got it.
That's great. We have another one from a guy, and he says that I have not seen the best example of marriage growing up, and marriage is a huge dream for me. What are some tips in preparing to be the best husband I can possibly be?
It's a beautiful question, and just even the question itself gives way to a major level of self-awareness, which I think is so healthy when it comes to relationships of any sort, because it's not just about your IQ, it's about your EQ, your emotional quotient, that you understand emotional awareness and intelligence, that you're growing in that. And so the fact that whoever this person is, I think they're on the right track already, because they're identifying that what I've seen has been unhealthy. Very important principle that whatever you watch is what you learn. And so if you've watched something that was broken or toxic or unhealthy, you need to be mindful of that, because many times we're going to repeat that which we've seen. And so I always think the starting point, not just for people that have come out of a broken home or out of a place that might be toxic, but for all of us. DawnCheré and I, we've got references for the type of marriage that we want. There's people that I know that in their 60s and 70s that have a healthy marriage. I'm taking note of that. What does it look like to be in love at 75? What does it look like to live as a godly man in your 80s? I think over and over again, you need to get a reference. Like anytime at church that we create something, I'm talking to all of our creatives right now, whether it's a design card or it's a stage, or even if it's music, we always start with references. We gather references, we like this, we saw this, and then it's out of the references that we begin to create. Why on earth would you just try to create a relationship out of thin air with no reference? The scripture says without a vision, the people throw off restraint. What does that mean to throw off restraint? Meaning there's no guardrails, there's no protection, there's no guidelines, there's no focus. And because you can't focus right now, I'm telling you that everything in your life that you don't focus on, it begins to diminish. That which you focus on gets bigger and better. And so I always think, try to find a healthy relationship and actually begin to mimic that. Ask someone to speak into your life. Ask someone to mentor you. Ask someone to give you counsel, to say, how did you do it? Get real with me. And even today, right now, like I want you to see other relationships, because there's so many great godly couples. They don't have a perfect relationship, but they have a godly relationship. And they're fighting to actually continue on the path of becoming and health and growth. And so I would say start with a reference if you want to get a healthy relationship going.
That's great. I agree. Do you want me to add on to that?
If you want to, you don't have to.
I would just say that the power of this room and this community gathering every week is exactly the basis of the answer of the question that you just asked. Because when you walk into a room like this and you see other people fighting for their marriage with faith, you see other people choosing to apply the word of God to their relationships, it gives you the faith. And whatever your past experience has been, whatever the situation of the home that you grew up in was, I can tell you that when you choose to be a part of the family of God, all of a sudden you can look around the room, you can look around your crew, you can look around the team that you serve on, and all of a sudden you have all these new reference points naturally, and you don't even notice. But over the weeks and over the years, those relationships shape you. They give you expectation, and they build your faith for the relationship that you'll have one day. It happens for all of us.
I love that. This next question comes from a young lady. She says, I had sex with my boyfriend 2 years ago. We were only intimate for a few months, and I decided to stop because I knew it wasn't right. I still feel extremely guilty. What do I do to get over this guilt and shame?
Well, Well, I think it's the power of the gospel. And I think that that's one situation that people carry guilt and shame in, but we could go down the aisles with a microphone, and if we got really honest today, where do you carry guilt? Where do you carry shame? It's the result of sin. Yeah. And anytime we sin, the result of that is shame. The good news is that the sacrifice has already been paid once and for all. And I think that when we continue to walk in shame after we've heard the truth and the good news, it's like we're trying to crucify Jesus all over again. Yeah. It doesn't need to happen anymore. And we need to learn how to forgive ourselves. I think the depth of that question that's very, very important, and maybe tonight we'll find some time to get into this more, is the narrative in the church around things like sexuality have been so myopic at times. It's been so black and white, which is like we teach young girls and young men, like, you know, hold out, be a virgin and wear a purity ring, and then you get married and it's like, take your purity ring off. And we're teaching a do and don't type of narrative, that if you do this, that's gonna happen. If you don't do this, that's gonna happen. And there's truth to it, but it's a half truth. The reason why we wanna walk in purity is not just so that we don't have sex with someone who's not our spouse. It's the reason why we're walking in purity is because we're honoring God and we're trusting God's plan over our plan. And so I see people like that make a mistake like this one. They go, oh, made the mistake. I guess there's no sense in trying to walk in purity now. And it's because we still think purity is a work of our flesh, but purity is actually a work of God's grace. Yeah. And like right now, today, you could make a decision. You might be here like living with your boyfriend or your girlfriend, and I'm not even coming at you condemning. I'm just saying you can make a decision to go, you know what? I really care about this person. Why don't we put God to the test and actually trust God at his word? And why don't we put guardrails and parameters around this and see if that actually heightens our love, heightens our intimacy in the future? I think that we've just taught this idea that you've messed up and now you're dirty, or that you've been rendered like no good anymore after one act. And I think the idea of purity is an ongoing process. Dude, I'm 35 years old. I've been married to the same woman for 13 years. Purity is just as difficult today as it was when I was 15. It's not like a youth group conversation. It's like a human being conversation.
That's really good.
That I'm gonna trust God at his word, and you're gonna continue to put God first. And I just think this idea that it's like having an affair and be like, you know what? And then you guys reconcile and be like, you know what? I've had an affair, and so that's just who I am now. And so I've already crossed that line. I'm just gonna continue to cross that line. But that doesn't make any sense. Yeah. If there's been forgiveness and reconciliation, why would you continue to go down that path more and more? Right. And I just want to fight in our church, because there's so many people that are coming to faith in their 30s and their 40s, even their 50s and 60s in our church. And with that, in culture, many people have been obeying the culture and trusting the culture, and it means that they've had some living going on. And I just don't like it when we create this idea that somehow you're less than, or you're useless, or you're dirty because of an act that you did. No, what we believe is in the gospel of Jesus Christ, that his one act of obedience today, we can actually receive his righteousness by putting our trust and our faith into the final and finished work of the cross of Jesus. And so, I don't think that was the question, but
I think that's,
it's a big deal to me, Mom.
It's really helpful for people, because a lot of people are on different journeys and trying to figure out how to live the right way and not feel that condemnation, actually feeling God's grace. Because we talk about it, we say, hey, you're set free, but a lot of people walk out here not feeling that actual freedom. So I think it's so helpful for people to hear that we don't want to just say we're free, we want to actually live in the freedom that God has given us. We want to walk in that freedom. So we have another question here. How can I heal from the hurt of a broken relationship?
Well, I want to say that it's possible, and that it's God's will for you, first of all, that our God is a healer. It's not just something he does, it's who he is, that healing is found in his presence. And I think that the expectations that we have for the journey after a heartbreak, it's very important to say that, I'm going to commit to the process. So what you see often is that people will say, my heart's broken. I'm going to try to be a part of church or community, but the healing doesn't take place fast enough, and they jump ship. And what they do is they miss out on what God had for them, that there was healing that was already in process, that more was happening within them as they were choosing to be a part of community, choosing to pursue God than they even knew. And I think that for all of us, healing is possible, but we have to first surrender our plan to the hands of God. Because oftentimes we can be still trying to hold on. Maybe you're trying to hold on to the bitterness. Friend, if you're still trying to hold on to the bitterness, your heart will not heal. If you're still trying to hold on to unforgiveness, if you're still obsessed with the past, God's saying, hey, there's nothing for you back there. I've got a great future in front of you. And as you seek me, you're gonna find me. And you know who I am? I'm the one who gives you your real purpose. I'm the one who really gives you a vision for your life. Your spouse can't give you a vision for your life because he didn't create you. She didn't create you. That boyfriend, that girlfriend, they can't tell you what your life was supposed to hold because they don't know. But you know who does know? Your creator. And he didn't just create you, but he has the ability to heal you, to set you free from the condemnation of the past, to give you a hope and a future. We don't just say these things. Every single one of us on this stage, we've experienced the healing power of the God that we serve. And if you'll just choose to trust him, if you'll choose not to jump ship, if you'll choose to stay committed and be patient with the process. When I get a wound, it takes time to heal. But even those scars are a testimony that we serve a healer, because God will take the wounds in your life and he will heal you from the inside out. He's able.
So beautiful. And you know, my heart just breaks even hearing the question, because I know in a room this size and those watching online that there's a lot of people that are dealing with a broken heart. They say divorce is like having a funeral, but nobody died. There's a process to the grief. And I think when it comes to this idea of wounds, I love that quote that God can heal your broken heart, but you have to give him all the pieces. Wow. Meaning, like, anytime, just once again, like practically, if you have a wound, the first thing you have to do is you actually have to begin to clean out the wound, expose the wound and clean it out. But at some point you have to stitch that thing up. And once you stitch that thing up, you can't keep fiddling around with it. You can't keep picking it back. You can't keep talking about it. You can't keep rehearsing it. I said a couple weeks ago, it's like, you know, a heal will wound, but you can't keep touching it. Like, you have to trust, you have to surrender it over to God. And there is a cleaning process. You have to go through the process of grief and the process of hurt. You do need people to talk it out with. But at some point, you begin to stitch it up and say, all right, I'm not gonna keep going back to that thing. I'm gonna let it heal. And what's so beautiful about God is nothing's ever wasted with God. That doesn't mean that we should get into a toxic relationship on purpose and say, I can't wait to see how God uses this for his glory. That's not wisdom, that's crazy, you know? But isn't it cool? Like, the only scar, the Bible says in heaven there's no tears, there's no pain, there's no sickness. Yet there are one set of scars in heaven that we will see. And that's the scars of our Savior on his hands and his feet. And I believe that he chooses to keep those scars as a reminder that what appeared to be the worst moment in the history of humanity, God took it around and used it as our salvation. His scars become our story, that he already absorbed our pain. He took all of our challenges and he died and he set us free. And today, I just want to encourage anyone out there, because we were kind of talking about this a little bit at JDD, just around the idea of just loneliness. My heart just goes out to people that have a broken heart, because it's a real thing. But as DawnCheré was saying, if you'll stick with it, if you'll continue in the process, I believe that God will heal it. Yeah. And as he heals it, he's going to use it for his good and for your good. And so I would say, don't give up, stick in there, continue to believe that God has a bright future in store for you.
Come on, isn't it so helpful for everybody today? Why don't we thank Pastor Rich and DC and our panelists